It's very hard for me to hide my frustration, so this is kind of when I realized that my friend Annie had not saved enough money for our 2-month Europe trip. She didn't really confess this to me, but I had to end up asking, and this is how that went. When it came to hostels, she always wanted to pick the cheapest, even if it was very dirty. So at some points, I was just like, maybe we should stay at different places. It's not what we wanted to do as two girls traveling alone. So usually she would just book wherever I booked. And when we would go out to eat, she would always look at the menu to not look and see if they had something for her, but to see the price and if things were too expensive. She started to say things like, this place is too expensive, to multiple places. So at some points, we would go the entire lunch and dinner period walking around restaurants and looking at menus. This happened for our first two locations in Girona and Tossa de Mar, and these are pretty cheap places. Girona is. Tossa de Mar is a bit more expensive, but our next place was Barcelona, and Barcelona is definitely one of the more expensive places in Spain. I started to get frustrated whenever it was time to go eat, we'd have to spend at least an hour trying to find a place to eat. So one day at lunch after doing this, maybe I was a little hangry, but I asked her, what is your budget for meals? I thought this would help us because I could do some research before we're starving and having to go to a restaurant so that we know a few places to go before just looking around. And she tells me that she's looking to spend for an appetizer, an entree, a dessert, and a drink around €5. Typically, they'll have lunch menus, which are really good deals, but you will not find them for €5. So then I ask her, how much money did you save for this trip? Because I'm getting concerned at this point. I don't remember the exact number, but I swear it was between €300 to €500 for 2 months in Europe. I knew that I would have to leave her at this point because there was no way I would be able to help pay for both her and me for this trip. And there were problems with money that did arise. Sometimes her card wouldn't work, so I would have to pay her bill, and that's totally fine. I expected that she would pay me back at some point, but when it got to it and I would have to request money from her, I would have to ask multiple times, and sometimes she would basically ignore me. Then finishing the night with the perfect view and a nice cup of coffee outside.